Yeah, it's kind of a rough ride, isn't it, right there for the beginning of Tri-City Sports Now with old extreme sports music. Hello, everyone. I'm Marky Bilson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. New generation, I talk about the 80s, which should tell you something about the state of sports talk radio in this market, and when I'm Sonny Boy, and all this. But nevertheless, I enjoy being the young punk of Tri-Cities Sports Talk Radio. I enjoy it very much. The name of the program is Tri-Cities Sports Now. And you know what? I own the Tri-Cities because I've got the hardest hitting opinions in the market. I was going to have the best guests, but the Appalachian League's mom and pop, even from the best of run teams, come up. We had been promoting Zach Clark as general manager of the Cardinals. We'll have him on tomorrow, but this does bother me when 15 minutes something comes up. And I understand sickness, emergencies, whatever. I mean, we do. But something came up 15 minutes before the show after promoting it all day. And we wanted to talk about, hey, why are the Cardinals setting all these great attendance records? They've got some good promotions going on. Yes, I mean, we like this. Hello. Yeah, okay. Wait, I want to know about the... I'm giving you free publicity, and I don't think you're drawing great guns because you turned down free publicity when it had originally been scheduled, and to capitalize on the momentum of back-to-back record crowds at Cardinal Park. So, anyway, great fireworks show on the 3rd. On the day before, you've got the, for lack of a better term, buck night, or dollar night, hot dogs and drinks, all that, or, $1, and that's great. That's great. And, there have been a lot of fantastic Appalachian League promotions. There's a good Appalachian League promotion today in Elizabeth's Twins game, which will be for first place, by the way, in the Appalachian League's Western Division. It's Lee Landers bobblehead night. First 300 fans get a Lee Landers bobblehead. Longtime president of the Appalachian League, retiring this year, after this year. He's been a staple on the show, that sort of thing. And I've always liked his honest answers. But the Elizabethan Twins with that promotion, and all this, that's a good, bobblehead. You never can go wrong with bobbleheads. I mean, that's great. Don't get me wrong. But that's been the best draw that they've had because the Twins are averaging less than 600 fans a game, even though they're leading the league, or the division, I should say. Bluefield at 13-2. Leading the Appalachian League overall, which I think is something of a surprise as well. But I want to talk a little bit to begin the program about the standard that any sports talk show host should be talking about in East Tennessee, and that is naturally the Tennessee Volunteers. Whenever you can do Tennessee Volunteers news, ETSU I think too, because I like talking about the big league team in town. Whenever you can do that, you're going to attract some listeners. Of course, the Tennessee Volunteers are down 4-8 last year. Worst season in 100 years. 0-8 in the SEC. On top of that, rebuilding. I've said it many times. I think that Tennessee should be very happy with a 6-6 record if they can possibly get that. I would probably expect more along the lines of 5-7, but you never know. And a lot of that, by the way, 5-7, I can see 3-9. I mean, I don't see them losing to Charlotte, UTEP, or ETSU. But literally, why would you pick Tennessee now over Vanderbilt, especially with the game in Nashville? I mean, why would you do that? Well, because Tennessee always beats Vanderbilt, because they should, because of what happened, for 20-odd straight years from 1982 to 2005. But it's 2018. Vandy's won 4 of 6. The playing field with the TV money now and the facilities that these teams have these days, all in the SEC, are very even to a large extent. The weight room, I've mentioned this before, the weight room at UT is 140,000 square feet. At Vandy, it's 110. Is that really a reason that you're going? Are you really going to get a lot more recruits if all things are equal? Because your weight room has 30,000 more square feet. Maybe. But how many? I mean, it's a sign in the right direction, but is that going to be the end-all, be-all? Think about this. Anyway, it's one of the things that other people don't necessarily talk about. But anyway, like I said, my guest, I've got some news on the Buffalo Valley Golf Course, what could happen there. That what happens to that property may determine more of the cosmopolitan nature of the Tri-Cities, folks. Not because they could refurbish a golf course there. I don't think that's ever happening. But what they could redevelop it as, and what they could redevelop it as, could very easily be something that could either make the area more cosmopolitan or, the way it's going right now, I mean, who knows? They may sell it to be a toxic waste dump or something. I mean, we didn't want a soccer stadium there, and we bought our homes around this place thinking it was going to be a golf course. Well, it's not going to be the case anymore. I mean, they couldn't make it profitable. Anyway, so I've got that. A lot of baseball news. I always love to talk baseball. A little bit, I can do a media watch here in the next hour. There is a major league sportscaster that is potentially on his way to a novel new project that I think could very much influence sports media coverage in the South. So a lot of stuff going on, but I want to begin, like I said, talking about the Vols, and there's a storyline that really relates to us here in the Tri-Cities, the old, third Saturday in October rivalry that I don't think has been played up that much. And there's a local storyline regarding Jeremy Pruitt's hire as Tennessee's head football coach, like I said, that hasn't been discussed much. And what it is, with Pruitt leaving Alabama to come to the Vols, somebody had to replace him on the Crimson Tide's staff. Well, somebody had to replace Pruitt, obviously. Now, Tosh Lupoy, he's 36 years old, young, up-and-coming coach, once rated as the best recruiter in the country when he was at California by Rivals, okay? He's been promoted from co-defensive coordinator and outside linebackers coach to become the new defensive coordinator of the Alabama Crimson Tide, all right? But the guy who took Pruitt's place on the staff, Lupoy just was, here's a raise, here's a promotion. He was promoted. The new hire, if you will, was Pete Golding. He was hired back in December. Now, if Pete Golding's name sounds a little familiar to upper Northeast Tennessee sports fans, what upper Northeast Tennessee? What would that be? I mean, would that be like north of the 81-26 interchange? Northeast Tennessee sports fans, okay? Pete Golding, you might remember, was an assistant coach at Tusculum. That was about 10 years ago. He was a defensive coordinator. And Golding has really been known, both with the Pioneers and everywhere he's gone, for his pass defense strategies. So naturally, Golding is going to coach inside linebackers instead of outside linebackers and defensive backs and all that you would think would be involved with pass defense. Shoot the gap and make the sack as a middle linebacker. Well, it does happen sometimes, but middle linebackers, you're out there making the call on the defense and, kind of primarily stopping a run, that sort of thing. Anyway, he comes to Tuscaloosa. Previously, he'd been at Texas San Antonio. That's a Conference USA school, relatively new, but then again, Conference USA is not the same conference it was, back when there were 6 major conferences and Conference USA was like knocking on the door. Hey, remember us? Tulane going 11-0 the year that Tennessee won the national championship. No, now all those old Conference USA schools, for the most part, are in the American, and the American is that conference. It's, okay, Central Florida, we went undefeated last year. We should be the national champion, that sort of thing. Okay, they're the outside looking in conference with the, please include us. We're as good as the 5th best conference, really. Well, maybe you are, maybe you aren't, But the thing is, the Roadrunners under Golding really enjoyed a lot of improvement statistically, defensively. In fact, when Golding was a defensive coordinator of the Texas San Antonio Roadrunners, UTSA, over the 2 years he was there, they gave up nearly 200 yards less per game, largely through the air, pass defense shoring up. But yeah, 200, which, obviously, if you were shoring up your run defense by 200 yards a game, you had no run defense before, obviously. 4th and 1, yeah, go for it, But anyhow, yeah, Golding really shored up that Roadrunners defense when he was there, the former Tusculum coach, turned Alabama coach. And like I said, over 2 years, about 200 yards a game. But the other thing he did at Texas San Antonio, I would go through the recruiting list to see who the recruits are when I was doing Unicoi County High School football. Does this team have any recruits? Does that team have any recruits? That sort of thing. And I would see that Golding really recruited the Tri-Cities and East Tennessee very well. The Tri-Cities, but the one notable player that he got to go to Texas San Antonio was a guy named Tyke Ogle Kellogg. And by the way, Unicoi County would have played Tyke Ogle Kellogg had they not lost their playoff game to Austin East by 33 points. That would have been the team, though, Alcoa, that eventually Unicoi County would have played in the state playoffs had they have won that game instead of losing 33-0. But Alcoa, like I said, they had a real nice receiver, really tall, 6'6", not necessarily just a beanpole either. And he was also being recruited by Louisville. Bobby Petrino's offense he could have been part of. Instead, he went to Texas San Antonio, and Golding was the guy that recruited him. And the question that I've got then is, will Golding continue to pursue this area for the Crimson Tide, just like he did Texas San Antonio? And if he does, what does that mean for Pruitt, the man he was ultimately hired to replace at Alabama? Now, again, doing some work on Rivals. Rivals lists 17 players. They're not all stars. Cade Ballard I was surprised to see this. He's the, star player down at Greenville, the perennial state champion Greenville Green Devils. Cade Ballard is pretty much accepted to be the best prospect in the Tri-Cities area, at least Tennessee side. But there's only a couple of stars. There are 17 players listed as potential college football prospects, real ones I guess could play D1 by Rivals this year. Now that may be that they had 17 players from the area go to the Rivals camp. That's always a possibility too. Not all of them have stars. None of them have 4 or 5 stars, which is generally what Alabama tries to recruit, as you know. And so how much that impact with the ties that Golding may have already in East Tennessee, gotta be kind of interesting. But let's just say one of the players would evolve into being one of those star players that an Alabama and a Tennessee could try to recruit. Much like in a previous generation, I'll give you an example, Jake Householder, Gate City. Back, and yeah, it's been 20 years almost, but one of the ways that Virginia Tech did so well in the Michael Vick era, they had Michael Vick, obviously, but one of the other things is that they were able to win local recruiting battles. Jason Witten may not have gone to Virginia Tech, but his brother Sean did. And he was good enough to, get significant playing time, went to the Jets on a tryout, that sort of thing, went to their training camp. Also, Jake Householder was he played defensively again. I mean, he didn't go to the NFL or anything like that, but he was a legitimate prospect. He was a legitimate defensive, starter down up at Virginia Tech. And the year that Virginia Tech played Florida State for the national championship, there were actually 3 Gate City Blue Devils on the Virginia Tech Hokies. So they started winning some of the local battles that previously, Tennessee wants you, you're going there. So now, it's not Virginia Tech so much that Tennessee has to worry about now, but with Golding down at Alabama, and that becomes a tougher recruiting battle, obviously, to win. And of course, you'll have players who want to stay home. I don't want to go to Alabama. I was a Vols fan, and all that. We had, Will Albright, the long snapper, who signed, real early at Tennessee. I mean, 2020 class to be the long snapper there. Why? He's in Greenville. He wants to play at Tennessee. That's understandable, But let's just take a player. I'm going to give you a player that could be somebody to watch. Over at Elizabethton, Garrett Jennings. Now, this is a lineman who's 6'7", 300 pounds. He's already caught, though he hasn't gotten an offer, the eye of Western Kentucky. Well, normally Alabama doesn't want to get into recruiting battles with players from Western Kentucky. That's who they're looking at. That's their big name offer. I get that. But again, 6'7", 300 pounds. From the school, the coach, if you will, that produced Evan Ellis to Yale. That produced his brother Jason Witten, originally to play the defensive line, and then the offensive line. Hey, tight end is an offensive line position. So there's some precedence there of good linemen coming from Elizabethton. What if Garrett Jennings, I could see him getting more interest than just Western Kentucky at 6'7", 300. Couldn't you? And especially at a program like Elizabethton. It's, I'm not saying that this guy is going to be all SEC and, be knocking Trey Smith out for a starting position if he signs with Tennessee, but it's a prospect to watch, right? So here's the question that I ask. If there becomes a nice player, a star player, a Cody Sensabaugh, a Jason Witten, someone like that who has come from the area recently, Teddy Gaines, I'm trying to keep it to the Tennessee products, Franklin from Science Hill, and I know he went the JUCO route first, but then he signed, to Tennessee. One of those players, couldn't you see the drama of a Golding versus Pruitt recruiting battle if the area produces a 4 or a 5-star product? And you know something? I would imagine that if Garrett Jennings starts to get the attention of an SEC program, there'll be stars next to his name. That's usually how that recruiting service stuff works. So, now I know Pruitt isn't going to be directly recruiting players unless it's, to close the deal or, here's the 5-star player. Hey, bring the big man out. That sort of thing. I get that. But that could really be if there is that talent here in the area. 4 or 5-star player. Want to stay at home? Local product going to Tennessee like it was traditionally? Or you've got a chance with Golding trying to recruit you to play for the country's most prestigious program. The revival of the Tennessee Volunteers may just depend on who wins these recruiting battles. If, let's say the Jennings, let's say the Ballards, whoever gets a few more stars next to their name. And again, when the big-time schools start coming, that's when the recruiting services start putting stars by your name. Ballard right now is a 2-star because he's, being looked at places like Middle Tennessee State and Tulane and places like that. When the big time, when those offers start coming, that's when the stars go up. It's the way it works. It's also why those recruiting services tend to be a bit disingenuous. I've taken a long time talking about this. When we come back, I'll have more Vols news after this on Tri-City Sports Now.